Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of New Kepler Station and watched the gas giant's purple storms swirl below. The massive planet filled half the view, its rings catching starlight like scattered diamonds. She never got tired of this sight. Even after 3 years stationed here, New Kepler was humanity's newest research outpost, built to study the strange energy readings coming from the gas giant. 200 people lived and worked on the station, floating in orbit around the massive world. Scientists ran experiments on exotic matter. Engineers tested new, faster-than-light communication systems. Everyone was excited about their work. Sarah walked through the main corridor, nodding to the crew members she passed. Dr. Martinez waved from the physics lab, where he was studying quantum particles. Engineer Thompson looked up from a broken gravity generator and gave her a thumbs up. The station felt like a small town in space, where everyone knew each other. The station had light defenses, just enough to stop pirates or asteroids. A few plasma cannons and energy shields protected them. Nobody expected trouble out here. They were scientists, not soldiers. Their mission was peaceful exploration of the galaxy. In the communications center, Lieutenant Kim was monitoring deep space signals. She turned when Sarah entered the room. "Any word from Earth?" Sarah asked. "The weekly supply ship should arrive next month," Kim replied. "And headquarters wants our monthly research report by Friday." Sarah smiled. Life on New Kepler moved at a steady pace. Wake up, do research, eat meals with friends, sleep, repeat. It was exactly the kind of quiet work that pushed humanity forward among the stars. But they were not alone in this part of space. Far away, in a different star system, Admiral Vex Tar of the Zephyrian hegemony read intelligence reports about human activities. The Zephyrians ruled 12 star systems with an iron fist. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. The Zephyrians believed they were superior to all other species in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of aliens. When they looked at humanity, they saw weak creatures who had spread too far, too fast. "These humans are like insects," Vextar told his officers during a meeting on his flagship. "They build their little stations in our territory and think they are safe." The Admiral studied holographic images of New Kepler Station. His intelligence officers had been watching the humans for months. The station looked peaceful, almost defenseless. Perfect for a demonstration. "Sir, our scans show they are conducting some kind of research," said Captain Thule. "Should we investigate what they are doing?" Vextar waved his hand dismissively. "It does not matter. These humans need to learn their place. We will destroy this station as a warning to their kind." The Zephyrian military had been looking for an excuse to test their new dreadnought warships. These massive vessels were 3 kilometers long and packed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Plasma cannons that could melt through any armor. Quantum shields that deflected most attacks. Fighter squadrons that could hunt down fleeing enemies. "Prepare the fleet," Vextar ordered. "We will make an example of this human outpost. Other species will see what happens when they intrude on Zephyrian space." Back on New Kepler Station, Sarah finished her daily inspection and returned to her quarters. She video called her sister on Earth, like she did every week. They talked about family news and Earth politics. Her sister's children had started school. Her parents were planning to retire soon. "When are you coming home for a visit?" her sister asked. "Maybe next year," Sarah said. "We're making real breakthroughs here. The research could change how we travel between stars." After ending the call, Sarah looked out her window at the gas giant again. She felt proud to be part of humanity's expansion into space. Every station, every colony, every research outpost brought them closer to understanding the universe. In the station's main lab, Dr. Martinez was excited about his latest experiment. He had discovered a new type of particle that seemed to bend space around itself. If they could harness this effect, spaceships might travel faster than ever before. "Sarah, you need to see this." he called when she passed by his lab. "These readings are incredible. We might be looking at a revolution in space travel." Sarah studied the data on his computer screens. The numbers and graphs meant little to her. But Martinez's enthusiasm was infectious. This was why they were here. To push the boundaries of human knowledge. Neither Sarah nor anyone else on the station knew that 5 Zephyrian dreadnoughts had just entered hyperspace, heading directly for their location. The alien fleet was 3 days away, and closing fast. The humans continued their peaceful work, unaware that their quiet research station had been marked for destruction. They studied their particles and tested their equipment, believing they were safe in the vast emptiness of space. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair as his fleet traveled through hyperspace. Soon, the humans would learn what happened to species who dared to expand into Zephyrian territory. The attack would be swift and overwhelming. The galaxy would see Zephyrian power and remember to show proper respect. The gas giant continued its eternal dance around its star, its purple storms swirling in patterns that had remained unchanged for millions of years. But change was coming to this quiet corner of space. In 3 days, the peace would be shattered forever. The alarm started screaming at 0600 station time. Sarah Chen jolted awake in her quarters as red lights flashed on every wall. She grabbed her uniform and ran toward the command center, her heart pounding. "Report!" she shouted as she burst through the doors. Lieutenant Kim's face was pale as she stared at her sensors. "5 massive ships just dropped out of hyperspace, Commander. They're bigger than anything in our database." Sarah looked at the main screen and felt her blood turn cold. 5 enormous vessels hung in space like metal mountains. Each one was at least 3 kilometers long, covered in weapon ports, and glowing with alien energy. She had never seen ships like these before. "Are they responding to our hails?" she asked. "Nothing yet," Kim replied. "Wait. Incoming transmission." The screen flickered and showed an alien face. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound harsh and commanding. "Human insects," the alien said. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You have 30 minutes to evacuate your station before we destroy it." Sarah stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is Commander Chen of New Kepler Station. We are a peaceful research facility. We have done nothing to threaten your people." Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. "You exist in space that belongs to the hegemony. That is threat enough. You have 25 minutes remaining. 9. 9. 9. "Please," Sarah said. "We have 200 civilians here. Scientists, engineers, families. Give us time to evacuate everyone safely." The Admiral's laugh was like grinding metal. "Your weakness disgusts me. You beg like the inferior species you are. I change my mind. You have 5 minutes to surrender, or we will hunt down every escape pod." The transmission ended. Sarah stared at the blank screen for a moment, then snapped into action. "All hands, abandon station," she announced over the ship-wide communication system. "This is not a drill. Proceed to escape pods immediately. We have 5 minutes." Chaos erupted throughout New Kepler Station. People ran through corridors carrying emergency supplies. Parents grabbed their children. Scientists tried to save their research data. Engineer Thompson worked frantically to overload the station's power core, hoping to damage the enemy ships when it exploded. Dr. Martinez appeared at Sarah's side. "The communication array," he said. "We need to send a message to Earth." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "Tell them what happened here." Martinez's fingers flew over his console as he composed an emergency transmission. The message was simple but urgent. "New Kepler under attack by aliens called Zephyrians. 200 souls aboard. They showed no mercy. Warn Earth. Remember us." The first escape pods launched just as the 5 minutes expired. Sarah watched from the command center as dozens of small ships shot away from the station like fleeing birds. Each pod could hold 10 people, and they scattered in different directions, hoping to confuse the attackers. Admiral Vextar watched the escaping humans with contempt. These creatures were even weaker than his intelligence reports suggested. They ran instead of fighting. They begged instead of showing pride. They deserved what was about to happen. "Open fire," he commanded. The Zephyrian dreadnoughts erupted with energy. Plasma cannons, each one the size of a building, sent streams of superheated matter toward New Kepler Station. The human shields held for 30 seconds before shattering like glass. Then the real destruction began. Sarah felt the station shake apart around her. Explosions ripped through the hull. The artificial gravity failed, sending debris floating through the corridors. Emergency lights flickered and died. She grabbed her emergency suit and sealed the helmet, just as the atmosphere began venting into space. "All remaining personnel to the escape pods," she ordered. But her words were lost in the noise of destruction. The station's frame twisted and broke under the alien bombardment. Entire sections separated and tumbled away into the void. Sarah made it to escape pod bay 7, just as the corridor behind her collapsed. Only 3 people were left in the bay: herself, Dr. Martinez, and Engineer Thompson. They climbed into the last functional pod and launched just as that section of the station exploded. But Admiral Vextar was not finished. He had promised to hunt down the fleeing pods, and Zephyrians always kept their promises. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Destroy every escape pod. Leave no survivors." Zephyrian fighter craft swarmed from the dreadnoughts like angry wasps. They were fast and deadly, armed with plasma cannons designed to punch through starship armor. The human escape pods had no weapons and only basic shielding. They were helpless prey. Sarah watched in horror from her pod's small window as the fighters began their hunt. Pod after pod exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Each explosion meant 10 human lives snuffed out in an instant. Her friends, her crew, her people, all murdered by aliens who saw them as nothing more than insects to be crushed. "They're coming for us," Martinez whispered. A Zephyrian fighter had spotted their pod and was moving to intercept. Its plasma cannon began charging, glowing with deadly energy. Thompson worked desperately at the pod's limited controls, trying to hide them in the gas giant's asteroid ring. The fighter fired. Thompson threw their pod into a spinning dive toward a large asteroid, just as the plasma bolt shot past them. They crashed into the asteroid's surface and bounced off. Their pod's hull cracked but intact. The fighter lost sight of them in the asteroid field and moved on to hunt easier prey. For the next hour, Sarah and her 2 companions watched the systematic execution of their friends and colleagues. The Zephyrian fighters were thorough and merciless. They checked every piece of debris, hunted down every heat signature, and destroyed every escape pod they could find. When it was over, space around the gas giant was filled with wreckage and bodies. New Kepler Station was gone, reduced to scattered metal and burning fragments. Of the 200 humans who had lived and worked there, only 3 survived, hidden in the shadow of an asteroid. Admiral Vextar recorded a message to be broadcast throughout local space. "Let all species see what happens to those who intrude on Zephyrian territory," he said. "The humans thought they were safe in their little station. They learned otherwise. Remember this lesson well." The Zephyrian fleet jumped back into hyperspace, leaving only death and destruction behind. They had accomplished their mission in less than 2 hours. To them, it was a successful operation, pest control on a galactic scale. Sarah Chen floated in her damaged escape pod, staring out at the debris field that had once been her home. Her hands shook as she activated the pod's emergency beacon, knowing it would take weeks for the signal to reach human space. She began to record her own message, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of New Kepler Station. The Zephyrians attacked without provocation. They murdered everyone. scientists, engineers, families. They hunted down our escape pods like animals. Earth must know. Earth must remember. They showed us no mercy. They deserve none in return. 3 weeks after the massacre, Sarah Chen's emergency signal reached Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station on Pluto. The automated systems flagged it as urgent and forwarded it immediately to military command in Washington. Fleet Admiral Marcus Thorne was drinking his morning coffee when his aide burst into his office. Colonel Williams looked pale and shaken as he handed over a data pad. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Williams said. "It's from New Kepler Station." Thorne had been expecting routine reports from the research outpost. Instead, he found himself watching Commander Chen's final message from her damaged escape pod. The recording was clear and devastating. 200 human civilians murdered in cold blood. Escape pods hunted down like prey. An entire station wiped out for no reason except alien arrogance. The Admiral's weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the footage. But Williams noticed his hands gripping the data pad so hard the metal frame began to bend. "Get me President Morrison," Thorne said quietly. "And activate security protocol. 7. I want every member of the Joint Chiefs in the Situation Room within the hour." "Sir, should I alert the media?" "Not yet, but prepare full disclosure packages. The American people will know what happened to their sons and daughters out there." Within hours, the footage reached every major government on Earth. The president watched it 3 times before speaking to his advisors. The Russian premier called an emergency session of parliament. The Chinese leadership met in closed session for 6 straight hours. Even nations that rarely agreed on anything reached the same conclusion. This could not stand. The news broke on every channel simultaneously. Major networks showed edited versions of the attack, removing the most graphic moments, but keeping the impact clear. Humanity watched in stunned silence as the Zephyrians systematically murdered their people in space. The reaction was immediate and unprecedented. Peace protesters who had demanded cuts to military spending suddenly disappeared from the streets. Instead, recruitment centers across every human colony found themselves swamped with volunteers. Lines stretched around city blocks as people waited to enlist. Age limits were quietly raised, as even grandparents demanded the right to serve. Congress held an emergency session that lasted 14 hours. The vote for unlimited military spending was unanimous, 535 to 0. Not a single representative voted against preparing for war. The defense budget tripled overnight, then tripled again the next day. President Morrison addressed the nation from the Oval Office. His speech lasted exactly 1 minute. "My fellow humans," he said, looking directly into the camera. 3 weeks ago, aliens calling themselves the Zephyrian hegemony attacked our people at New Kepler Station. They murdered 200 innocent civilians. They hunted down families trying to escape. They recorded their crimes and broadcast them across the galaxy as a warning to other species. They made one critical error in judgment. They attacked humans. We will respond accordingly. Behind the scenes, Fleet Admiral Thorne activated humanity's most classified project. For 50 years, Earth's military planners had prepared for exactly this scenario: total war against a superior alien force. The plans had codenames like Sledgehammer and Final Solution and Divine Retribution. Deep space monitoring stations throughout human territory began tracking every Zephyrian ship in known space. Spy satellites hidden in asteroid fields activated and started transmitting targeting data. Intelligence operatives embedded in alien governments sent detailed reports about Zephyrian military capabilities. The massive shipyards of Luna, Mars, and the asteroid belt received new orders. Every facility that had been building exploration vessels and cargo haulers suddenly retooled for military production. Automated factories began consuming entire asteroids to feed the growing war machine. But Earth's real strength lay hidden in the outer system, far from prying alien eyes. For decades, humanity had been building secret facilities in the darkness beyond Pluto. Entire moons had been hollowed out and converted into shipyards. Massive automated factories operated around the clock, powered by the unlimited energy of fusion reactors. Admiral Thorne stood in the command center of Facility Omega, buried deep inside the dwarf planet Eris. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the construction bays where humanity's newest warships were taking shape. These vessels dwarfed anything in the current human fleet. They were designed for one purpose: overwhelming force projection against superior enemies. "Status report," he ordered. "First wave production is ahead of schedule," replied General Harrison, the facility's commander. "We'll have 50 dreadnoughts ready within 6 months. The heavy siege platforms will take longer, but the first 12 should be operational within 8 months. Thorne nodded. "And the special weapons? Planet crackers are in final testing. The antimatter torpedoes exceeded all expectations. The nanophage deployment systems are disturbing, sir, but effective." "Good. Begin Phase 2 immediately. I want every hidden facility operating at maximum capacity." Throughout human space, similar scenes played out in secret. The asteroid belt hummed with hidden activity as massive mining operations consumed entire asteroids. Jupiter's moons concealed sprawling shipyards protected by stealth technology. Even Earth's ocean floors had been converted into manufacturing centers, building the components for humanity's response. The Zephyrian hegemony remained blissfully unaware of the storm gathering against them. Their intelligence services reported increased human military activity, but Admiral Vextar dismissed it as primitive posturing. "Let them build their little ships," he told his staff during a briefing on the hegemony capital world. "We have ruled this sector for 3 centuries. What can these upstart humans possibly do against our proven superiority?" Captain Thule looked uncomfortable. "Sir, our long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity in several human systems. Large-scale construction, increased energy signatures. Perhaps we should investigate." Vextar waved dismissively. "Paranoia. They are probably building more research stations, like the one we destroyed. Let them waste their resources on pointless expansion. It will make them easier to conquer when we decide their territory is worth claiming." But some Zephyrian officers were not so confident. Deep space patrol ships reported strange contacts at the edge of their sensors. Massive objects moving between star systems, always just beyond visual range. When investigation fleets arrived, they found empty space and no trace of whatever had been detected. The disappearances started small. A patrol ship here, a listening post there. The hegemony military chalked it up to equipment failures or navigational errors. Space was vast, and even advanced civilizations lost the occasional vessel to accidents or unknown phenomena. But the pattern was expanding. Entire sectors were going dark, their monitoring stations falling silent one by one. Supply convoys began vanishing without trace or distress call. When search and rescue ships investigated, they found nothing. No debris, no survivors, no clues about what had happened. Admiral Vextar finally began to pay attention when 3 of his own dreadnoughts went missing in the same week. These were not small patrol craft or isolated outposts. They were state-of-the-art warships with crews of thousands, protected by the finest shields and weapons in the hegemony fleet. "Where are my ships?" he demanded during an emergency staff meeting. "Unknown, sir," replied his intelligence chief. They were conducting routine patrols in sectors 7, 12, and 18. All 3 fleets stopped reporting within a 4-day period. No distress signals were received. "Send investigation fleets to all 3 locations. I want answers." The investigation fleets found empty space where 3 dreadnoughts and their escorts should have been. Long-range sensors detected traces of exotic radiation and gravitational distortions, but no physical evidence of what had destroyed the hegemony ships. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vextar felt a chill of uncertainty. The humans had been silent for months, their space dark and apparently empty. But something was moving in the shadows between stars, something that could make entire fleets disappear without a trace. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Thorne reviewed the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as planned. The enemy was beginning to understand that they were no longer the hunters in this conflict. They had become the prey, and their predator was closing in for the kill. 6 months had passed since New Kepler Station burned, and the Zephyrian hegemony was beginning to understand fear. What started as missing patrol ships had become a systematic dismantling of their outer territories. Entire star systems had gone silent, their monitoring stations destroyed, their defense fleets vanished. Admiral Vextar stood before a holographic map of hegemony space, watching red zones spread like a disease across their territory. Each red zone marked an area where they had lost all contact with their forces. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Something was hunting them with methodical precision. 17 more ships lost this week, reported Captain Thule, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. 3 patrol squadrons, 2 heavy cruisers, and an entire supply convoy. No distress signals, no debris, nothing. Vextar studied the tactical display with growing dread. The attacks showed intelligence and planning. Whoever was doing this knew hegemony patrol routes, supply schedules, and communication protocols. They struck like ghosts, appearing just long enough to destroy their targets before vanishing back into the void. "What do our scouts report about human space?" Vextar asked. "That's the disturbing part, sir. Human space appears completely empty. No ship movements, no communication traffic, nothing. It's like they all just disappeared." But the humans had not disappeared. They had simply learned to move in ways the Zephyrians could not detect. Deep in the darkness beyond Pluto, Fleet Admiral Thorne commanded humanity's response from the bridge of the UES Retribution, Earth's newest and most powerful dreadnought. The ship was 5 kilometers long and packed with weapons technology that pushed the boundaries of physics. Its stealth systems made it invisible to conventional sensors, and its weapons could crack planets. Around the Retribution, 10,000 similar vessels moved through space like silent predators. This was Battlefleet Omega, humanity's answer to alien aggression. Every ship was crewed by volunteers who had watched the footage from New Kepler. Every captain carried orders signed in the blood of murdered civilians. "Target acquisition complete," reported Commander Nash from the tactical station. "Zephyrian Supply Depot at coordinates 147 Gamma 9. Estimated garrison of 50,000 personnel." Thorne studied the tactical readout. The depot was a massive space station that supplied hegemony forces across 3 star systems. Its destruction would cripple enemy operations in the entire sector. "Rules of engagement?" Nash asked. "The same as always," Thorne replied coldly. "No survivors, no mercy, no quarter." They showed none to our people. The human attack was swift and overwhelming. Stealth destroyers appeared throughout the depot's defensive grid, their weapons already charging. The Zephyrian defenders had seconds to realize they were under attack before antimatter torpedoes began detonating. The space station's shields held for exactly 47 seconds before collapsing under the concentrated firepower. Then, the real destruction began. Planet cracker weapons, originally designed to mine asteroids, tore through the station's hull like paper. Nanophage swarms consumed entire sections, converting matter into more weapons that spread throughout the facility. Within an hour, the supply depot was gone. 50,000 Zephyrians died in screaming agony as nanophages dissolved them at the molecular level. Their final transmissions were broadcasts of pure terror as they realized what was happening to them. Admiral Vexus Tar received the depot's last transmission in his command center. The voice of Commander Kelthar, the station's commanding officer, was distorted by static and fear. "They're everywhere. Ships appearing from nowhere. weapons we've never seen before. The nanophages are spreading through Deck 7, 8, 9. By the ancient gods, they're dissolving everything. This isn't war, it's extermination. Tell my family. The transmission ended in a burst of static. Vex Tar stared at the empty screen, his 4 hands trembling. Commander Kelthar had been his student at the military academy, one of the finest officers in the hegemony fleet. Now he was dead, along with everyone under his command. "Sir," Captain Thule said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting massive gravimetric disturbances moving through sectors 4 and 5. Whatever destroyed the depot is heading for our outer colonies." Vex's Tar knew he should order evacuations, should pull back his forces to defend the inner systems. But hegemony doctrine demanded strength, not retreat. He had built his career on crushing inferior species. The idea that humans might be superior was impossible to accept. "Double all patrols," he ordered, "and send a message to High Command. Request immediate reinforcement with the 3rd and 4th fleets." But reinforcements would take weeks to arrive, and the humans were not waiting. Across Zephyrian space, the pattern of destruction continued. Mining colonies vanished overnight. Military bases were found empty. Their personnel simply gone. Trade routes became death traps, where merchant ships entered, but never emerged. The humans had learned much from studying captured Zephyrian technology. Every destroyed ship, every overrun base, provided new intelligence about enemy capabilities and weaknesses. Human engineers reverse-engineered alien weapons and improved upon them. What the Zephyrians had developed over centuries, humanity perfected in months. Dr. Martinez, one of the 3 survivors from New Kepler Station, worked in Earth's most classified research facility. The exotic particles he had discovered before the attack had been weaponized into reality-warping devices that could tear holes in space itself. His grief over his murdered colleagues had transformed into cold scientific fury. "The quantum disruptors are ready for field testing," he reported to Admiral Thorne during a classified briefing. "They can destabilize matter at the subatomic level across a range of 50 kilometers. Anything caught in the field will simply cease to exist." "Deployment schedule?" Thorne asked. "The first batch is being installed on your heavy siege platforms now. Admiral, when you use these weapons, there won't be anything left to bury." Thorne nodded grimly. "Good. That's exactly what we want." The Zephyrians had no idea that their casual massacre of civilians had awakened something far worse than a military response. They had triggered humanity's transformation from peaceful explorers into something that would haunt alien nightmares for generations. Engineer Thompson, another New Kepler survivor, had designed the stealth systems that made human ships invisible. His modifications to standard cloaking technology were revolutionary, bending light and sensor waves around entire fleets. The Zephyrians were fighting an enemy they could not see, track, or predict. "How many hegemony ships have we destroyed so far?" Thompson asked during a briefing on Luna Base. 837 confirmed kills, replied the intelligence officer. "No human losses. Our stealth technology is performing beyond all expectations." "And civilian casualties?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew that human attacks deliberately targeted military installations while avoiding civilian areas. But the Zephyrians had shown no such restraint at New Kepler. The question hanging in the air was whether humanity would continue to fight clean or embrace total war. Admiral Thorne answered the unspoken question when he addressed the fleet commanders later that day. His words were recorded and would be studied by historians for centuries to come. "We are not them," he said. "We do not murder families. We do not hunt down escape pods filled with children. We are better than that. But make no mistake, every Zephyrian soldier, every military officer, every ship that serves their war machine will be destroyed. We will dismantle their empire piece by piece until nothing remains but dust and regret." The hunt continued across the galaxy. Zephyrian military forces found themselves trapped in an invisible net that grew tighter each day. Supply lines were cut. Communications were jammed. Reinforcements never arrived at their destinations. The mighty hegemony, masters of a dozen star systems, began to crumble under the systematic assault of an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Vextar received reports of increasing panic throughout hegemony space. Military commanders demanded evacuation of their families. Civilian populations fled toward the inner systems. Some colonies declared independence and begged for human mercy. "Sir," Captain Thule said during one of their daily briefings, "intelligence suggests the humans are preparing for a major assault on the core systems. Long-range probes have detected massive fleet concentrations moving toward the capital." Vextar looked at the tactical display one last time. The red zones now covered over 60% of hegemony space. His mighty empire was dying, consumed by shadows that struck without warning and vanished without trace. "Send a message to all surviving fleet commands," he ordered. "Fall back to the homeworld. We make our final stand at HFY." But deep in his hearts, Admiral Vextar knew the truth. The humans were not coming to conquer them. They were coming to finish what they had started when they murdered 200 innocent people at a research station. The humans were coming for revenge, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Exactly 1 year after the New Kepler massacre, the human fleet revealed itself above the Zephyrian homeworld of HFY. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, and stared in absolute horror at what filled the space around his planet. The human armada was beyond comprehension. 10,000 ships stretched across the star system like a metal constellation. Massive dreadnoughts, each one larger than HFY's capital city. Siege platforms that dwarfed entire space stations. Carriers disgorging endless swarms of fighter craft. Battle cruisers bristling with weapons that defied Zephyrian understanding. "How many?" Vextar whispered to his tactical officer. "Sensors can barely count them all, sir. At least 10,000 major vessels, maybe more. They must have turned their entire civilization into a war machine." That was exactly what humanity had done. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource in human space had been converted to a single purpose: the complete destruction of the Zephyrian hegemony. Nothing had been too expensive, no sacrifice too great. An entire species had focused their brilliant minds and unlimited determination on perfecting the art of war. The human fleet hung in perfect formation around HFY, a demonstration of military precision that made the Zephyrian defenders look like scattered insects. At the center of the formation, the massive dreadnought UES Retribution dwarfed everything around it. Its hull was scarred from a year of battles, marked with the names of destroyed hegemony worlds. Fleet Admiral Marcus Thorne stood on his command bridge and looked down at the planet that had spawned the species responsible for New Kepler. HFY was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of Earth. Billions of Zephyrians lived on its surface, going about their daily lives while their military prepared for the final battle. "Sir," Commander Nash reported, "all fleet elements report ready. Weapons charged, targeting solutions locked. We're receiving surrender signals from 12 hegemony vessels." Thorne studied the tactical display without emotion. The Zephyrian defense fleet was impressive. By galactic standards, 300 ships, including 50 dreadnoughts. A year ago, such a force would have terrified humanity. Now, it looked pathetically small compared to the armada that had hunted their kind across the galaxy. "Open a channel to all Zephyrian forces," Thorne ordered. "All frequencies. All bands. I want every military officer and civilian on that planet to hear this." The communication systems of 10,000 human ships linked together, creating a broadcast powerful enough to reach every receiver in the star system. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on Thorne's screen, his 4 eyes wide with the desperate hope that humans might show mercy. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Thorne of the United Earth Space Forces," he began, his voice carrying across space to reach every Zephyrian ear. "Exactly 1 year ago, your forces attacked New Kepler Station. You murdered 188 innocent civilians. You hunted down escape pods filled with families and children. You recorded your crimes and broadcast them as a warning to other species." Vextar tried to interrupt. "Admiral Thorne, You will not speak," Thorne continued coldly. "You had your chance to show humanity your nature. Today, you learn ours. For New Kepler. For the 188 innocent souls you slaughtered while they begged for mercy. For every human child who watched the footage of your glorious victory and wept with fear. This ends now." The transmission shifted to show images from the New Kepler attack. Every Zephyrian in the system watched as their military systematically executed helpless escape pods. They saw the faces of human families in their final moments. They heard the laughter of hegemony officers as they hunted down fleeing civilians. "You wanted the galaxy to know your power," Thorne said. "Today, the galaxy learns ours. You showed no mercy to our people. You will receive none in return." Admiral Vextar activated his own transmitter, his voice breaking with desperation. "Admiral Thorne, please. I was following orders. The attack was authorized by High Command." Many of us questioned. Commander Chen of New Kepler Station also followed orders. Thorne interrupted. Her orders were to conduct peaceful research and protect her crew. She died trying to save them. Your orders were to commit genocide. You succeeded. Now face the consequences. The human fleet began its bombardment without another word. The attack was methodical, overwhelming, and merciless. Weapons that had been perfected during a year of hunting Zephyrian forces unleashed their fury on the homeworld below. Planet crackers, originally designed for asteroid mining, split Zephy's continents like rotten fruit. The massive kinetic projectiles traveled at nearly the speed of light, each one carrying the power of a dozen nuclear weapons. They punched through the planet's crust and shattered tectonic plates, creating earthquakes that registered beyond any scale. Antimatter torpedoes followed, each one capable of annihilating everything within 100 kilometers. They struck the planet's surface like falling stars, creating craters that could be seen from orbit. Ancient cities that had stood for millennia vanished in microseconds, leaving only glass and radiation. The Zephyrian defense fleet tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against human technology. Their plasma cannons, so devastating against conventional armor, barely scorched the hulls of human dreadnoughts. Their quantum shields, pride of hegemony engineering, collapsed under the first volley of human fire. Dr. Martinez watched from the science vessel UES Newton as his quantum disruptors were deployed for the first time in battle. The exotic particles he had discovered at New Kepler, now weaponized beyond imagination, reached down to Zephy's surface and began unraveling matter at the subatomic level. Entire mountain ranges simply ceased to exist as reality broke down around them. The planet's magnetic field fluctuated wildly as fundamental forces were torn apart and rebuilt. What had once been solid ground became something that existed between dimensions. Neither matter nor energy, but something altogether more terrifying. Engineer Thompson's nanophage swarms were released in the final phase of the attack. The microscopic machines had been programmed with one simple directive: consume everything that carried Zephyrian genetic markers. They fell to the planet's surface like invisible snow and began their work. The nanophages were perfectly selective. They ignored human DNA completely, along with any other species that might be present on Zephy. But Zephyrian cells were converted into more nanophages, which spread to find new targets. The process was silent, efficient, and absolutely final. Admiral Vextar watched his homeworld die from the bridge of his flagship. His own ship was disabled, but not destroyed, The humans wanted witnesses to their power. Through his viewports, he could see continents cracking apart, oceans boiling away, and the very atmosphere beginning to dissipate into space. Please. He transmitted on all frequencies. We surrender. Unconditional surrender. Stop this madness. Well, one conditional surrender. Thorne's voice came back immediately, as cold as the void between stars. Commander Chen requested safe passage for civilian evacuees. You laughed at her. Doctor. Martinez begged for time to evacuate families. You reduced your deadline and hunted them down like animals. Your surrender is noted and rejected. The bombardment continued for 72 hours. When it finally ended, HFY no longer existed as a living world. The planet still orbited its star, but its surface was a wasteland of glass and ash. No buildings remained standing. No life remained alive. Even the planet's rotation had been altered by the massive impacts. 10 billion Zephyrians had died in 3 days. The species that had ruled 12 star systems for 3 centuries was extinct. Their mighty empire had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in distant colonies, begging other species for protection from human vengeance. Fleet Admiral Thorne transmitted one final message to the galaxy, broadcast on every frequency and sent to every known civilization. His words were simple, but would echo through history for millennia to come. This is Admiral Marcus Thorne of Earth. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that the Zephyrian hegemony attacked and murdered 188 innocent human civilians at New Kepler Station. Today, their homeworld pays the price for that crime. We are not conquerors. We are not interested in your territories or your resources, but we will not forget, and we will not forgive those who harm our people. Choose your next actions very carefully. The human fleet vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, jumping back into hyperspace and leaving behind only the dead world of HFY as a monument to their wrath. Throughout the galaxy, species that had been planning aggression against human colonies quietly abandoned those plans. Treaties of non-aggression were hastily drafted. Even the oldest and most powerful civilizations began sending ambassadors to Earth with gifts and pledges of friendship. Commander Sarah Chen, Dr. Martinez, and Engineer Thompson stood together in the observation deck of the UES Retribution as it returned to Earth. They had all requested to witness the final battle, to see justice delivered for their murdered friends and colleagues. Is it over? Martinez asked quietly. This part is, Sarah replied. The galaxy knows what happens when you attack human civilians. We've bought peace for our children and their children. Thompson nodded toward the stars ahead. The New Kepler Memorial is complete now. Every name carved in stone. Every story told. They won't be forgotten. As the human fleet approached Earth, they passed the massive memorial station built in orbit around Luna. The names of 188 civilians were inscribed in letters 10 meters tall, visible from space. Below each name was a simple inscription. They died in peace. Their deaths purchased justice. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson about humanity. Behind their curiosity and diplomatic nature lay an industrial war machine capable of erasing entire civilizations from existence. They were not warlike by nature, but when their children were murdered, they became something far more dangerous than conquerors. They became the final arbiters of justice among the stars, and their judgment was absolute and eternal.